Terrarian in the Dungeon, Chapter 78, Fan Fiction, by Azazyel. Please like and subscribe to this YouTube channel for listening and patreon.com/Azazyel to read all of his stories. The lunch between me and Freya was brought to me by Ottar himself, with the meal being a whole selection of dishes that were fit for the most powerful goddess in Orario, and I was welcome to eat at my will. For a few minutes, as Freya and I ate, we were silent. She would occasionally glance up at me with wonder and delight that seemed to change slightly at every glance she took at me, and I just frankly enjoyed the meal that even world leaders in my old life couldn't scoff at. But the delightful meal and silence were broken as Freya elegantly set down the fork she was using and then crossed her hands and placed them on the table as she spoke bluntly. "So, Jake, I can see partly the emotions you feel from your soul, and I have to ask how you feel about me in particular, as your soul is a kaleidoscope of things going on, to say nothing of the items of power that are attached to your soul." And look at me threateningly. At Freya's excessively blunt question, I didn't know how to reply honestly, as she always seemed to be the type to work in the background and not go on the direct attack unless her interests were at risk. Even as I smiled wryly at the thought of Mini-Eater of Worlds flying around my soul protectively like a dog would encircle their master to defend him, I took a moment to respond to Freya. "What do I think of you? I have thoughts about you, not many, too kind. The type of woman you are, the way you handle your familia is not to my taste. And frankly, your obsessive's love that is like a typhoon that comes and wrecks everything before passing on, is the biggest attraction you have." I responded equally bluntly. Freya didn't speak or respond to my opinion of her for a solid minute, and she raised a hand that was previously clasped to swirl her crystal wine glass before she took a drink of it. "So, you see me as the whore of Babylon? You see me as a loose woman who sleeps with everything with a pulse while also destroying people's lives as I pressure them and then move on when I get bored?" She asked wryly as she gently set her drink on the table. Her lavender eyes no longer looked at her food, and I could feel her passive divine charm as she fully met my gaze with her full attention. "Jake Barris. I am old, I am a goddess beyond your comprehension, and if you desire to make that tiny ambition to be beyond a mortal achievement, you should consider quitting looking at people who are far above you in such a disgusting way." She warned me, and I swallowed as Freya's arcanum rose to the surface of her being as a warning. "I am the goddess Freya. Beauty, magic, war, and all warriors themselves are my domain. I slept with who I desired, who were worthy of touching my flesh, and you, as a grand warrior, are any different?" she asked, scoffing before she smiled sarcastically. "Jake, you as a record breaker are prime mating material. You can decry me as a slut, but the first time you found an easy woman in a bar on the side of the red light district, what did you do?" she asked, and I grimaced as I did just what Freya would do with her charm. "I used my status as the record breaker, I used my talent, strength, and Seshet's mating mark to string along Beatrice as a live-in free-use maid. I honestly wasn't any different from Freya with her passive charm. Why are you not treating this like a game, like the rest of the gods do?" I softly asked as I looked up at Freya from my own plate after I pushed down the shame I felt for treating Beatrice as I had. But I could fix and repay her situation when I got home. Freya sighed with her finger twirling across her glass of wine, and without looking at me, she responded. "Remember this, Jake Barris. I am the goddess of love who embodies it in obsessive love." Her lavender-purple eyes then snapped back up to me as she spoke softly while smiling sadly. "I have already fallen in love with you and with your soul that has exceeded anything I have seen in countless millennia of living. I will never forget you, I will never move on from your soul. There will be no other work of ages to polish that can match the brilliance of your being." She whispered at the end that I could barely hear, and honestly, I didn't think I was meant to. "So as to why am I not treating you like a game like other gods and even Seshet does? That's because I want you to win. I want you to go beyond level 10, and I was even willing to have Ottar snap one of my strongest adventurers' necks when they brought danger to you." Freya spoke before she gracefully stood up and, in a single smooth motion that reminded me of how she was a war goddess, she maneuvered across the table in that single motion to softly pin her hands on my rising shoulders as I went to pull my chair back and sit up. While I stood up, she whispered directly into my ears. "I am willing to give up my familia and everything to help you succeed if you would accept me, as I will never hamper you in any way. I will never again take another lover, as none can match their souls, and even the thought of lying with them makes me mentally and physically ill. It honestly feels like drinking the finest wine your entire life and then being introduced to the most gut-rotting paint thinner of a brew, to my body with my domains revolting at the idea of coupling with others." She spoke wryly with her charm-filled eyes stared at me with such desire that I had never seen it in anything except for the obsessive desire for my death from dungeon monsters, and as her hands with despiteful strength tried to keep me in my chair, but I gently moved her out of the way so I could stand up. "Lady Freya, you have given me Much to think about, but I have duties in my familia, and I must return home, I said respectfully as I tried to move back. Freya took a deep breath as her hands slid down from my shoulders and down my chest before I took a step back as her hands went low. I see, Freya said, smiling demurely before she nodded and looked to me with some actual concern. I wish you the best on your trip to the BO Mountains, but beware, as the mountains are inhabited by monsters that aren't limited to the floor they are supposed to be in within the dungeon. She warned me with actual concern. Thank you for the advice, Freya. I guess I will see you again soon. I said more to myself at the end as I knew with Evelys acting up that the familiars were going to be called to meetings and such. But Freya's eyes at my words lit up with glee as she considered my words to mean I was going to come to visit her herself. Wait. Freya called out as I took out my magic mirror, and I paused for a second to look at Freya, who looked honestly nervous before she spoke. I want to do something for you. I know you don't want anything to do with me, but I will change. I will become that what will earn your desire, and I will have you, whether it's one day or millennia from now, as I won't give up. She said proudly, and I wanted to just teleport before a thought crossed my mind and I decided fuck it. Kill Ishtar for being a sub-leader of Evelys tonight, then, I said, and she blinked with her head tilting to the side in confusion. That's it? That's nothing, alright, I will do it tonight, dear. She said cheerfully, and before I could recover from the Yandra cuteness, she used a dainty finger to tilt the mirror to my face, and then I was teleported back home.